All right, hello and welcome back to season 2 of Dream Girl. Today my guest is Corrina. So Corrina works as a business development manager at Fortify Health, a public health organization that works to reduce anemia and neural tube defects at scale in India. She previously founded and ran Saheli, a social enterprise that improves women's access to affordable and high-quality menstrual hygiene products in rural India. She's been an Ocean Path Fellow with the Coady International Institute in Canada and an incubatee of the Charity Entrepreneurship Incubation Program. Hello, Corrina. How are you today?
Hi, Sheen. Lovely to be here. I'm doing really well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I just found out that you're actually in India right now. So how are things with COVID and stuff?
Yeah, it has been a really bad 2 months for the country at large. But the good news is that at least in my part of the country, cases have really shot down, and vaccination supply has also sort of increased. So things are looking up and giving us some hope that we are finally past the second wave, at least in the western part. Yeah, so we are in a partial
really
lockdown.
So you are still in
Certain
lockdown
states
there.
are opening up, gradually. For my city, the lockdown is still until June 15th. And then beyond that, things will gradually start opening up. For other states, they have opened up since June 1st.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, walk us through the history of Corrina.
Okay.
Where did you study? What have you been doing throughout your life?
I was born in India. I was born in a small town called Godhra in the state of Gujarat, where Saheli is actually based. And then I moved to Pune after grade 3, which is a larger city where I'm currently based. And then I did most of my schooling here until grade 10. But I was always aware of a lot of health issues in the communities that my parents worked in, because both of them are doctors. And then after grade 10, after taking my board exams, that's what they're called in India, the standardized tests, we moved to Canada. So I did part of my high school there, and then went on and did my bachelor's over there as well at McGill University in Montreal. So yeah, that's the highest level of education that I've got so far. And then after that, I decided to move back to India and work in the social impact space. So that's how Saheli has happened, and then Fortify Health as well. So yeah, it's been a fairly short journey. I don't know what to focus on in particular. Okay.
Okay. Well, I have questions. Yeah, I have questions. Okay.
Yeah, so
what
I
did you study
studied
at McGill?
international development and economics. So it's kind of a new field of economics called development economics, which is, it's been around for decades, but I think it's become very practical with sort of a new approach of experimentation in development economics. So where you do sort of randomized control trials to understand the effectiveness of different development programs, and then take those results and sort of scale certain solutions versus others. So it's become much more practical, less theoretical, and it's really boomed in the last few years. So that's what I did my major in. Yeah.
All right. And you say you moved back to India.
So
is it just you, or
yeah,
is
it's
your
kind of
whole
a
family
complex
also back in India
situation.
now?
So my mom and my brother are based in Canada, but my father and I are based in India. So my dad is still practicing in Godhra, and yeah, I moved back. So I guess it's half and half now.
Okay. How was adjustment for you in terms of like
To be
moving from
very
India
honest,
to Canada and then
I
back
think
to India?
it depends a lot on the kind of environment you go into. So when I moved from India to Canada, we relocated to a neighborhood which had a lot of new immigrants. So I didn't feel completely out of place. So there was some sort of culture shock, but not super drastic. and I was able to fit in very well into my high school. But I did feel that culture shock when I moved from high school, which was primarily like a new immigrant student body, to university, which was very international, but primarily sort of, white Canadian or European students. And yeah, there was a fair bit of culture shock over there. But I think those periods also sort of help you grow quite a bit. But when I moved back to India, there was sort of this reverse culture shock, especially because I was moving from sort of McGill to a really small town in India, which has very traditionally, kind of old-fashioned, sort of not used to so many women sort of leading organizations, things like that. But I think because I had my family and a lot of friends back then, it is my hometown. I found it easier to adjust back. I think if you don't have that kind of support system, it becomes difficult when you're moving from one culture to another, from one environment to another. Yeah. How about you? I just wanted to ask you.
Absolutely.
So then I know you're originally from
go for it.
The Mauritius, if I'm not wrong. How was it for you moving to the UK?
Yeah. So when I moved to the UK, I was 18, 19, and I moved to university, and it was very different, definitely. And it was my first time moving away from home, first time living on my own, first time really being in Europe as well. But the good thing is when you move as part of university as a student, it's very different because there is a lot of support and people tell you where to go and what to do. So at least that part was easy. But then obviously in terms of adjustment, I did think, this is a bit, some things you notice are different to the way things are at home. And I 100% experience what you just talked about in terms of the reverse culture shock when you go back, because every time I go back home, then I'm like, oh my God, how are things like this here? And then you start thinking, it's so easy to move beyond all of this. Why haven't we? But yeah, it is very interesting. And I think I agree with you with the support thing is very important, especially when you go home, the people, at least then it's worth it. And you even know kind of the problems, so you're used to them, right? And then you can navigate that system a bit better. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. And even now I'm leaving the UK very soon to move to Dubai. So that's going to be a different thing. And people ask me how I feel about this. And my answer is always, I am very scared, because last time I moved as a student. So I had all of the support and everything. But now I'm moving for jobs. So that's a bit different. So I'll let you know how it goes after I move with that. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Okay, what I was going to ask was, obviously we were introduced to each other by Nikita. And so do you know Nikita from Fortify Health?
I had gotten into the charity entrepreneurship incubation program in 2020, which is essentially this sort of boot camp for people who want to start new, evidence-based charities around the world. And they basically do a lot of research. They do a lot of legwork for you in figuring out, what the model of the intervention should be. And then sort of allow you to pair up with other participants in the program to start a new charity if it's a good fit for you. So unfortunately, the ideas that they were proposing were not the right fit for me, primarily because, they were more suited to other parts of the world rather than India, and I didn't want to move again. So the next step then was to get connected to charities that had already been incubated by CE, and to see if, any of them were located in India, and to discuss, potential opportunities with those charities. So that's how I got in touch with Nikita, who is the CEO of Fortify Health. And then we started discussing, a potential role. And yeah, that's how I got introduced to her. And it's been sort of 8-9 months since I've started working at Fortify Health.
Okay.
Yeah, so Fortify
Health,
as you introduced in the intro, is a charity. It's fairly new, so we call it a charity startup. So it works in India to introduce fortification, which is the addition of small doses of essential micronutrients. So we help mills essentially to add iron, folic acid, and vitamin B12 to wheat flour, which is a staple in India, with the aim of reducing anemia at scale. So that's our core intervention.
Okay. So how do you go about doing this? Do you have to convince people who make flour?
So you touched on both of our
Policy?
branches.
What is it?
We work in the open market, so we approach mills directly to be part of our program. So our program essentially is, a partnership which offers them all the requirements to do fortification, which is the equipment, the actual fortificants, the monitoring and evaluation support, and certain marketing funds in order to add fortificants into the products they're already producing. So it's not, producing a new product or marketing a new product, but trying to fortify all of their currently marketed products. So we approach mills like that in the open market. And then we also have another branch of, introducing fortified wheat flour into government safety net programs. And safety net programs are essentially programs that reach the most vulnerable, most impoverished populations of the country through highly subsidized food distribution, whether that's through sort of fair price stores or through residential schools for indigenous children. So we are currently in talks with a couple of government departments in the state of Maharashtra to introduce fortified wheat flour in a few of these safety net programs. So these are two branches, and then we have sort of a general view that generating more evidence about sort of practical approaches to fortification in India is always going to be helpful, even if other organizations are using that to move forward. So we try to publish these kinds of inside insights, that's what we call them, on doing fortification in India.
Okay. And how did you at Fortify Health, how did they land on the using, flour or wheat as the distribution? How did you get to that? Because I'm impressed by that.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful idea.
I'm also really
how
impressed
did that
by it.
happen?
So you might want to ask Nikita, because she was, she's the founder and she was the one who sort of chose the idea. But I think fortification in general, staple fortification, is sort of a decades-old idea. Even in India, if you see, salt has been fortified with iodine for the last 30-40 years. And there are fortification programs for a lot of the staples.
Wow.
So government is promoting fortification in most staples in the country, like oil can be fortified with vitamin A and D, milk can be fortified with vitamin A and D, rice and wheat flour can be fortified with iron, folic acid, vitamin B12 and zinc, etc. But I think the adoption of this in the open market, in government schemes, etc., is sort of off the mark in a lot of developing countries. So if you look at the US, Canada, etc., wheat flour, there is a government mandate to fortify wheat flour with iron, folic acid, vitamin B12. Whereas in India, I think it hasn't come about because of industry structure, etc. It's more fragmented. It's harder for sort of small mills to do it. etc. So we want to sort of nudge the open market and government programs to start it earlier rather than later. But we do think that this is something that is in the cards for the country regardless, because the government knows that it's a very effective way to improve health at scale.
And how have you found the results of your work so far? Do you see changes?
So since I joined, I think there have been a lot of lockdowns. So it's been open and shut. So it's hard to make a lot of significant progress. When the environment is like this. But since our founding in 2017, we have been able to sign around 9 mill partnerships. So right now we have 9 mill partnerships with medium-sized mills, and we are on track to approaching and partnering with some of the larger mills in the country. So that way we are seeing more progress. With any kind of fortification program, it's hard to see tangible sort of effects, because this kind of micronutrient malnutrition is called hidden hunger. So you can't see the effects of any intervention right away. But it's something that we'll see the effects of 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line.
Okay, that's great. So what is your future now in terms of your work with Fortify Health? What's in the cards,
so
especially
luckily,
after COVID?
We do have, as an organization, we do have sort of some funding from an organization called GiveWell, which is an evidence-based funder. You might have heard of it. I think in your podcast with Lucia, I might have heard mention of that, if I'm not wrong.
Lucia mentioned GiveWell.
So I think that's not our biggest constraint. Funding is not our biggest constraint, and because of COVID, we have been able to save a lot on travel, on premix, etc. So I think once things open up, and they're opening up now, we are seeing sort of fairly quick progress on. No worries.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, it was a delivery, and my flatmate had a night shift last night, so he's asleep, and I was just like,
Sorry. So funding is not the biggest constraint. I think as things start opening up, and they're already opening up, and as most of our team gets vaccinated, I think we'll move ahead with most of these mill visits, and we are sort of on track to reaching our targets for the end of this year, which is 12 mill partnerships. Thanks.
Oh wow, that's very cool. Well, good luck with that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, obviously, is Saheli. So I'm very intrigued by it because I will tell you why. Because I've been involved with, I don't know if you've heard of the Global Shapers, which is from the World Economic Forum. So I am part of the Cambridge hub, and I was put in touch with the Navi Mumbai hub. And they were currently, not currently, before COVID, they were trying to launch this project called Saheli as well. But Saheli stood for, so it was like sanitation and health education, blah, blah, blah. And it was, again, to provide like menstrual packages to women in the slums, especially in Maharashtra. And it was a very cool project. I became one of the ambassadors for them, and I think they got money with UNICEF India as well. And it was a very cool project. But then COVID happened, and then they had to, use all of their resources to get food and stuff to people instead. But that project is still in the waiting to happen.
Yeah,
so
Saheli is a pretty common word and pretty common name for these projects, because Saheli means sort of a female friend, right, or companion.
It's such a good name. Yeah,
so it's actually very similar to the Navi Mumbai project you're talking about. And I think there's a sort of boom in this decentralized manufacturing and distribution of menstrual hygiene products in India and in South Asia because of this one person. His name is Arunachalam Muruganantham, who is referred to as Padman. Yeah.
Oh, is that Padman?
Exactly. So he was the one who sort of pioneered this small-scale sanitary napkin manufacturing machine, which is where this movement started off from. And now we see, a lot of small sanitary napkin manufacturing units, even in rural areas. And he was one of my inspirations when we started, developing the idea and proposal for Saheli. Another really fantastic role model is Suhani Jalota, who's also based in Mumbai. You might have heard of her. She runs this organization called Maina Mahila Foundation, which is, so very similar.
Oh, yeah,
work.
I've heard of that.
And when I was in university, I think third year or between third and fourth year, when we were coming up with ideas, I had come across her project, and it seemed really cool. And we also got in touch with them and, learned a lot from their journey. So the whole idea came about because I was applying for the Ocean Path Fellowship, which is this fellowship offered to young Canadian graduates who want to engage in any kind of community development initiatives anywhere in the world, really. The only requirement is that you have to have a prior connection to the community you're going back to. So I thought, going back to my hometown would be, a good way to sort of give back to my community, work in the social impact sector, and also spend some more time with my father. So it was like an all-in-one deal. And then I started talking to social workers and doctors in our district, which happens to be sort of one of the most poor districts of our state. There's a very high indigenous population as well, which unfortunately is very vulnerable. So I was talking to a social worker who works with women, and she had been in touch with a lot of women who had primary education but not secondary or tertiary education. So what happens with that segment of women is that they do not want to work in sort of physically laborious jobs like construction work, but they're not qualified to work in the service sector or in software or anything like that. So there is that urge to work, that motivation to gain skills and to earn for the family, but not a lot of opportunities to work in an environment that is safe, that needs that rudimentary level of literacy, numeracy, communication skills, etc. So we wanted to target, that segment of the population for women that we wanted to, provide livelihoods to. And so we thought of, different kinds of social enterprise models. And then I stumbled upon sort of the Padman story and Maina Mahila Foundation. And we thought, why not sanitary napkins? There wasn't, a similar unit operating in our district at the time. So we went ahead and, came up with the proposal, spoke to women, did surveys, etc., which showed that, there was a lack of access, especially in smaller towns and in rural areas, for affordable sanitary napkins. And so that's how it all came about. I went back after the training provided through the Ocean Path Fellowship. We got some seed funding, and that's how it all started. Okay, so Saheli is a social enterprise that employs, as I said, women with primary but not secondary or tertiary education to manufacture and market affordable sanitary napkins in.
So you do everything. You actually manufacture the napkins and then you market and distribute it. Oh, wow.
Our distribution is focused on the 3 districts I was talking about, which are some of the poorest districts in the country, not just the state. And we have a small manufacturing unit where we actually produce the sanitary napkins. We employ 7 women currently, and we produce around 3,000 to 4,000 packets per month. And we have sort of 2 distribution channels. So one is, it's kind of like Fortify Health. One is through the open market, and one is through donations. So through the open market work, we wanted to sort of channel the existing open market or private sector channels, right? So these are medical stores or pharmacies. These are sort of provisional stores. This is, the boom in digital marketing in rural areas, which is really exciting. So we do sort of sales of sanitary napkins in rural and semi-urban areas through these channels. And we focus on stores that are not currently selling any kind of menstrual hygiene products, but are selling small, everyday items, sort of water, milk, groceries, and any kind of essential supplies. So we target those. We use Facebook ads, we use Google ads, etc. So that's one way of getting our product in the hands of the target customer. And then the other way is through donations. So we have partnered with sort of carefully selected government schools that are more remote, target to poorer populations, and are sort of just in general more eager to partner with us. So those are the 3 criteria. And then we offer them very regular supply of sanitary napkins for the adolescent girls in those schools. So instead of sort of spreading ourselves thin and doing a one-time distribution in a lot of government schools, we decided to, so that's what we used to do in the past. And now we've sort of changed our strategy, and we partner with selected schools, but we want to sort of encourage habit change, right, in the girls. So we offer longer partnerships and more deep partnerships in order to help out the girls in the longer term.
Right. So this is very cool. I'm so interested in this. Okay. So, in terms of your business model, is it now that when you sell the pads, the money that comes in is what you use to pay the people who work in the factory and stuff?
Yeah,
so this runs your costs now?
Sorry, go ahead.
Or do you still... Okay. No, I was just asking, or do you still need to raise money, or is it now a self-sustained
So no, it's
business?
not entirely, financially sustainable yet. We do use the sales revenue to cover the costs of the project and the manufacturing. But we also rely on donations, right, for these government school partnerships. So that is sort of the breakdown of how we generate funds to keep the organization running. Yeah.
So you're basically addressing education and awareness about menstrual health through the school projects, and then you are providing jobs, and you are creating more affordable pads by making them locally.
Yeah, so through the government schools, actually, education is definitely a part of it. But I think that is one of the key sort of nodes for distribution in rural India, right? So you have to identify where your beneficiary or customer is going to be able to access any product. And in rural India, there are not a lot of sort of nodes for that. So you don't have malls or too many stores where, a lot of young women can go and buy these things. So schools, colleges, etc. are, some of the most efficient ways of reaching a large number of adolescent girls or women. I think that's a location in every village that most girls trust and feel comfortable going to. So it is about education, but it's also about finding sort of the most efficient way of reaching girls in remote areas.
Yeah, that's very cool. I like how you're addressing the problem from different sides, because period poverty is so multifaceted, and it's good to know and understand that. There's also a lot of new chats now about making pads that are, good for the environment or reusable. Have you thought about maybe launching into that, or is that too complicated at the moment with what you are focused on?
Yeah, so we have definitely thought about it. When we were coming up with the proposal, or were in the ideation phase, we did consider reusable pads as well, which are essentially cloth pads, right? But we came across some issues with how they are used, which might lead to sort of poor menstrual hygiene if there is not enough education around the product. So what I mean by that is, with reusable pads, I think it's very important to wash and dry them out in the sun. That might be, an issue with a lot of stigma. Exactly.
It's a bit taboo, right?
That is somewhere where a lot of education is needed, and we were not sure if we would be able to provide all of that in order to ensure that, enough hygiene is being maintained. And the other thing was definitely the cost of reusable pads. So they cost anywhere between sort of 300 to 500 rupees, which is a high one-time cost for any woman in a small town or a village. So that's why we had decided to go ahead with the disposable disposable sanitary pads. But our aim is to make them 100% compostable. So far we have found substitutes for 2 of the layers of the sanitary napkin, and we have switched to those. So we've switched to compostable plastic for the bottom layer, and we have switched to sort of cardboard packaging instead of plastic packaging. But there are a few materials for which we haven't been able to find compostable substitutes, but that is definitely the goal. And we do want to get there while maintaining a low enough cost, because what happens with compostable or biodegradable pads very often is that they do cater a lot to the elite, which is fine. Like, definitely for any movement you have to start somewhere, but because our focus is to target women that are more economically underprivileged, it didn't make sense to make it 100% compostable if it is costing 10 times a regular pack of sanitary napkins.
Okay. I mean, I think your work is incredible. So I have a question for you, because this is a conversation that I have had recently with people. And this is something I do not personally agree with, but I want your point on it. Is there is this conversation that happens, especially in the West, where when they talk about period poverty in Asia or in Africa, there is this question of, why don't we just give these women who are in these rural areas who don't have access to pads and stuff, why don't we just give them the pill that will stop them from having their period for a long time? And I think that's really taking away the choice of women. But what's your point on that? What do you think? Before I tell you what I think.
Oh, I've never heard that point before. One thing, I definitely have to look more into this, but because I have discussed sort of contraceptives, etc., with my father, who's a gynecologist. I think there are sort of hormonal issues that do come with taking the pill on on a long-term basis, which I'm not sure about for adolescent girls especially. And yeah, I don't know if this is sort of this is sort of a way to just skip or run away from the real issue rather than.
It does sound right. It doesn't sound right? It's just a bit wrong to like think that the best way to solve this problem is to just tell these women and girls that you should just not have your period and we can just stop it for you. And I think that's, people think that it's, but if we give them the choice, but there is a lack of education, like the understanding, the stigma, the taboo, the culture, everything is so different that it is not really giving them the choice. If you're giving them that, is really kind of, I think it's taking away their choice, if anything. But I wanted to ask you because, you work in the field and you know exactly what the problem is. But
yeah,
it's an interesting topic.
I'm not sure if there would be medical issues with sort of, I'll have to definitely look more into this, but I'm not comfortable recommending this solution to women who are in a completely different cultural context, may not have, very good access to high quality pills, etc. Might be, using different contraceptive methods. And the central issue is that menstruation would still be a taboo. Female sexuality would still be a taboo. So, a pad is a way to start a conversation. So whenever we go into a certain community, we start off with, education or, short seminars to sort of educate women about the reproductive system, about periods, about nutrition during these times. So all essentially, giving them a pill would not help address these issues, and might lead to others. So I don't know if I would be comfortable recommending this before speaking to sort of gynecologists who have worked in the field in the context we're talking about.
Yeah. I agree. You've explained this very well, but also it's not going to fix period poverty, definitely, because there's just so many layers to it. But yeah, it's a very good way of putting this. Well, thank you, Corrina. That's all the questions I had for you. Is there anything you'd like to plug in, anything we can check out for your work or where people can donate, and etc.? Please.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. I didn't even notice the time had passed. But
I'm glad.
If anyone would like to check out Fortify Health's work, they can go to our website. It's www.fortifyhealth.global. And they can learn more about fortification, about our work, and where to donate. And if anyone would like to check out Saheli, you can go to www.mysaheli.org, which is mysaheli.org. And although we don't accept donations from international donors, because there is sort of this, licensing issue with Indian NGOs. You can definitely, give us suggestions, feedback, learn more about our work, sign up to our newsletter, because I think we are also looking for talent, for advisors, etc., not just funding.
Absolutely. And I will have all the links in the description as well, just to make it easier to click. Well, thank you, Corrina, for being here, and good luck with your amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add that I love listening to your podcast, so please keep up the amazing work you're doing as well.
Oh, thank you. That makes me so happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, it's just going to upload now.